Warm greetings from the high tent. It's Everyday Shenanigans, and thanks for joining me. Hello, everybody in the chat. Who done it, Marie? Thank you all for joining me. This is Crime Vault. Who killed Nicole Brown Simpson and Ronald Goldman? This Crime Vault is an extension of Everyday Shenanigans, and feel free to hit the link when it's dropped to give your commentary pertaining to who you believe killed these two people so many years ago. I brought you Crime Vault a little while ago, and in the vault will be older crime stories that were either solved or unsolved, but they were a later date and time in history when an American crime took place. And tonight's discussion is pertaining to O.J. Simpson, Nicole Brown Simpson, and Ronald Goldman. Thank you for joining me. The people of the state of California versus Orenthal James Simpson was a criminal trial in Los Angeles County Superior Court in which former National Football League player, broadcaster, actor O.J. Simpson was tried and acquitted for the murders of his ex-wife Nicole Brown Simpson and her friend Ronald Goldman. The pair were stabbed to death outside Brown's condominium in the Brentwood neighborhood of Los Angeles on the night of June 12, 1994. The trial spanned 11 months from the jury swearing in on November 9, 1994. Opening statements were made on January 24, 1995, and Simpson was acquitted of both counts of murder on October 3rd of the same year. The trial is often characterized as the trial of the century because of its international publicity and has been described as the most publicized criminal trial in history. When I brought you Crime Vault, the Simpson case, Nicole Brown Simpson and Ronald Goldman the other day, a new figure was brought into the equation, and Mr. Glenn Rogers. He is a known serial killer here in America, sitting on death row as I speak. His name was brought up as a potential suspect, but many of us did not know of this said information, and I'm just now hearing about this information when I decided to do my research for this commentary. He has killed many people across country, and he has been deemed the cross-country / Casanova killer. Why did law enforcement not bring forth the information pertaining to Mr. Rogers? Why is that? It's because they had overwhelming evidence against Orenthal, and they said to themselves, we don't need to mention Mr. Rogers because we have enough against O.J. Simpson. Many people believe that O.J. had a sidekick on that fateful evening. Some people believe his son was involved. Why? I do not know. That would be the last person I would assume would help aid their own father in killing their ex-wife. And yes, Nicole Brown Simpson was O.J. Simpson's ex-wife at the time of her murder and Mr. Goldman's murder. His eldest two children do not belong to Nicole. For those who do not know that, he only had two smaller children with her at the time. His older children are by his first wife. So as I said, I would not see the need in this older child in his 20s committing a crime with his father. I don't even think he would care. It's a kid. Some people thought it was drug related because a lot of things were coming out pertaining to her past. Miss Nicole, it was said that she had many male friends, lovers. I do not know what is truth or not. It is alleged that O.J. stalked her up until her death. He would peer through her windows. They have audio of them arguing, and he was claiming to have seen her making love sex with a male in her living room. Now, only a person watching would know that unless they heard that. You're entitled to your interpretation of that said information. Many calls she made over the years to 911 pertaining to Orenthal beating her. She even documented cases in her diary, which have been released to the public, and I released that information in my Crime Vault video. As I said, you're entitled to your opinion of who you think killed these two people. But Mr. Glenn Rogers stuck out to me because I watched a movie the other night on Showtime pertaining to the death of Nicole And that was the narrative of that movie, that perhaps Mr. Rogers was hired by O.J. Simpson to kill her, rob her of some earrings, allegedly, breaking her house. This also plays out in the movie. The man is seen talking to himself inside of the living room, allegedly talking to a mysterious Charlie. Now, we know that when Orenthal wrote a book, If I Did It, a Charlie is mentioned. I don't know if it's in the book, but I know it's in an interview he gave. Excuse me. He mentions a Charlie, because I have not read the book, so I'm going to stay on his interview. He mentions a mysterious Charlie, OJ, as a sidekick to that night. What's baffling is that Glenn allegedly mentions a mysterious Charlie in a conversation talking to himself inside of her living room, if this is to be believed to be true, because the dead can tell no tales. And I don't know if Mr. Roberts has ever told this story about a mysterious Charlie, but OJ used the same name for his mysterious culprit, sidekick, co-conspirator in the deaths of Nicole and Ron. Thank you for joining me. This is Crime Vault, an extension of Everyday Shenanigans. Did O.J. Simpson kill Nicole Brown Simpson and Ronald Goldman? This is a panel discussion. Thank you so much for joining me. One moment, please. Hello, everybody in the chat. Thank you for joining me. $31 viewing. All right. Thank you so much. Hello, everybody in the chat. I'm going to play you commentary from the family. This is 2019. Thank you so much for joining me. Then I will give you information pertaining to Mr. Glenn Rogers as an alternative suspect to the deaths of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ronald Goldman.
Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman were murdered. O.J. Simpson acquitted in the trial of the century. We're going to speak with Kim and Fred Goldman, Ron's sister and father, in just a moment. But first, Amy is here with more. Good morning, Amy.
Yeah, good morning, guys. We all know this case was a watershed moment for our culture. People can tell you where they were as they watched that slow speed chase. They can tell you where they were when the verdict was announced. And all these years later, Kim Goldman is now confronting O.J. Simpson.
Right.
It's been more than 2 decades since the trial of the century captivated the nation.
If it doesn't fit, you must acquit.
Football and movie star O.J. Simpson fighting for his freedom, accused of brutally killing his ex-wife, Nicole Brown, and her friend, Ron Goldman.
We, the jury, in the above entitled action, find the defendant or Orenthal James Simpson not guilty of the crime of murder.
In a verdict that divided the nation, Simpson found not guilty. The Goldmans left shell-shocked. Now, 25 years after the murders, Simpson says he and his children are moving on. The now 71-year-old, who was released from a Nevada prison in 2017 after spending 9 years behind bars for unrelated charges of robbery and kidnapping, seen in these newly released photos taken last week at his Las Vegas home, posing in his office and yard. The Hall of Famer says he is happy, healthy, and spends his days playing golf, telling the Associated Press, "We don't need to go back and relive the worst day of our lives. The subject of the moment is the subject I will never revisit again. My family and I have moved on to what we call the no negative zone. We focus on the positives." But the Goldmans keeping the focus on the family member they lost. This is Confronting O.J. Simpson. I'm your host, Kim Goldman. In a new podcast, Ron's sister Kim revisiting the trial, interviewing everyone from investigators to members of the jury to star witness Kato Kalin, who was living in a bungalow on Simpson's property at the time of the murders. Did you ever talk to Simpson after the murders?
OJ pulled me into the kitchen by myself and said, "You know I was here with you?" And I said, "No, I don't." He just kind of shook it off. And then I was like, is he trying to use me for something that I think he could have done?
Now, in 1997, you may remember a civil jury found Simpson liable for wrongful death. He was ordered to pay millions of dollars to the families of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman, but most of that has gone unpaid, Robin.
That's right, Amy. Thank you. And joining us now are Kim and Fred Goldman. Thank you both very much. Kim, I know normally today you honor your brother in private, but you decided to speak out. Why?
This year has been about confronting, the name of my show, so I figured why not? Why not just do it all in one fell swoop? But I really wanted to just kind of face some of my fears, face some of my anxiety. I know that I can handle it. I have a great support system, but I just wanted to go full force this year, so this is how I started.
And every day is painful. You don't need a day to mark that, but what are your emotions, especially today, Fred?
I think what happens is that they just become more intense. You're exactly right. It never goes away. It's always there. The pain is always there. The loss is always there. Today is just that much more intense. It's hard for me to imagine that it's 25 years. Ron would be 50 now. I have a hard time recognizing or reckoning that whole idea.
Remind people of the closeness, the family dynamics that you all shared.
My dad does never let me say thank you to him for doing such a good job with my brother and I. He raised us as a single parent. My brother and I were 3.5 and 6. And I don't know how you did that, but you created such a close-knit relationship for all of us with a lot of trust and love and dedication. And
your brother was very protective of you, wasn't he?
Yeah, I was raised by two great men, my dad and my brother. My brother took really good care of me, always making sure that I was taken care of and protected and following along, making sure I was never alone, but looked out for me from every moment.
Every picture, every memory I have of the two of them as together, Ron holding Kim's hand, always there to be there for her, protect her. If she had some issue, Ron was always going to jump in and take care of it. There was one time where Kim had some issue on the school bus, and Ron jumped in. He was there the next day to give the kid a little knowledge that he better not do it again.
Do that. Confronting OJ, your podcast, which is coming out. You talked to the major players in the case. You went right to them to interview them. What were you hoping to accomplish with this, and why did you decide to do it?
I think for all these years, it's been a little frustrating that there's been so much about this case that is made, all the television series and the fictional approaches, that I thought it was important to go right to the source. These are people that lived a very similar lifestyle that my dad and I did in very different directions, and I wanted to understand how they were doing, what they were thinking, how they've lived their life, how they functioned in the aftermath of all of it. And I wanted to go right to the source. So I went to Marcia Clark and Chris Darden, Bill Hodgman, Cato Kalin, some of the jurors.
And when you talked to some of the jurors, they had something interesting to say about deliberations.
Yeah, they corroborated what my dad and I always thought, which was that they didn't do their job. They pulled testimony just to cover up that they already knew what their answer was when they went into that jury room, and they wasted our time for 3.5 hours making up just fake deliberations so that they could look better.
Pretend like they were doing their job.
But they had said that the jurors you spoke to said that they had made up their mind.
Their mind was made up, and that the 3.5 hours was a cover up.
You talk about so much in your podcast. You really go there, Kim. And when you talk about O.J. Simpson and about how you tried to meet him when he was in prison, and that you had a chance meeting up with him in a parking lot.
Yeah, it was a couple years after the verdict. I saw him walking across the parking lot, or what I believed was him. I was by myself in my car, and I saw that gate, that natural gate that I've been following for so many years. And I revved the engine, and I gripped the steering wheel thinking I could take him out right here. Nobody would know. But
that's not you.
No, and I would never do that to my dad. But that's not me. You're right. It was just a fleeting moment, but it happened for sure.
I can't get past something that you said moments ago, Fred, that your son was 25 years old when this happened, and it's 25 years later. And we appreciate how over the years that you've come here and that you've shared your story in hopes of finding hope for others. Mm-hmm. And we appreciate that very much.
Right.
Thank you. We've been lucky.
I think it's important for everyone to always remember victims like Ron, like Nicole, because that kind of thing happens every day. And we all see it in the news, the violence of mass shootings, etc. It happens every day, and those families have the same pain that we've gone through and will go through for years to come. We can't ignore that. It's way too important. Way too important.
Yes, as is this day. Fred, Kim, thank you very much. Thank you for running OJ, the podcast. Thank you.
All right, everybody. It's ABC News. That was Mr. Goldman and his daughter giving their commentary a few years back pertaining to this case. I want to bring you one set of information, then I'll let you all speak. This will be pertaining to Mr. Rogers. He is an alternate suspect, if you believe that he possibly could be a suspect. We will see. One moment, please. So I can find his name here. Just 1 second. It's not coming up. There we go. Glenn Edward Rogers, incarcerated at Union Correctional Institution awaiting execution, convictions, armed robbery, arson, grand theft auto, murder, criminal penalty, death. This is an alternate suspect who was mentioned in this movie made Showtime, airs on Showtime at the current moment, that he crossed the paths with Nicole Brown Simpson. He was recommended as a painter from her friend, who is now also deceased. Many people do not know that. The woman who recommended Mr. Rogers, she is also dead. She was a neighbor. I do not know the close proximity to where her house was home to Nicole's, but it's baffling that we never heard this information. That a man who is now on death row as a serial killer allegedly crossed the paths with Miss Nicole, painted her house, also recommended by her friend who was murdered. Very strange coincidence. And then Nicole ends up dead. She and Mr. Ron Goldman. Many people do believe still that O.J. Simpson is the one and only suspect. Glenn Edward Rogers, born July 15, 1962, also known as the cross-country killer or the Casanova killer. Now, know that when you go into Wikipedia and Google, you will see another man deemed also as the Casanova killer. He is an American serial killer. He was convicted of 2 murders and is a suspect in numerous others throughout the United States, including being mentioned and considered by investigators in Los Angeles County as a possible alternative to suspect to O.J. Simpson in the murders of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman. Although as of 2022, nothing has developed regarding these allegations, Rogers was featured on the FBI 10 Most Wanted Fugitives list after a crime spree that began on September 28, 1995, with Rogers' first authority established as murder. Please feel free to go back to my previous video, The Vault, and all the said information pertaining to Mr. Glenn is in that commentary. Feel free to Google search while listening to this commentary. Did O.J. Simpson kill Nicole Brown Simpson and Ronald Goldman? Hello.
Hello, Queen. You having a nice weekend, I hope?
Yeah, I'm trying. How are you?
That's good. Yeah, I'm doing all right. Doing okay. Good content.
Thank you.
You want me to tell you what I think?
That's why I hit the button.
Well, that was my first clue, huh?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, I watched that trial, watched everything. Watched the coverage, watched the pursuit when he was attempting. I don't know if he was attempting a getaway or just what, but I recall his state of mind and the fact that he seemed so prepared to escape.
Okay. Wait. Before you start, listen. Before you start,
yeah.
What made you assume he was prepared?
Because the amount of cash they found in the car, wasn't there a passport involved there? There was another item that was an important thing. It just made it look strange to me from the beginning. Now, I'm not saying that's what compelled me, but I have to think about, wow, that's an interesting part of this.
Okay.
I also thought, wasn't he friends with a lot of the members of the police force? You know, obviously not Mark Herman.
A few have been said to have frequented his house when he had parties.
Yeah. So I'm thinking, well, why would anyone on the police? They seemed hesitant to want to. I mean, he's a national hero of mine. I loved him not only as a football player, but as I loved the movies he was in. I thought he was hysterical. So I was so.
So are you able to separate the two?
It's very difficult.
Actor/murderer.
Yes, I think it is, and I think it was difficult for anybody watching, painful for anybody.
But I'm saying, can you separate all those titles?
Yeah, I can. Okay, I can. So it broke. I
think that's the reason why many people could not.
I agree with you completely. It was hard for me to see this hero this person that I had admired for so long. I mean, the Hertz commercials, even I just loved him no matter what he did. And it's a hard thing when your heroes fall, it at least appear to.
Well, doesn't it go back to the age-old notion that you do not know people?
Correct. Have no idea.
And that's the assumption, is that we know people because they're doing things that we like or engage in. But in the end, whether it's a sports hero or just a sportsman, actor, musician, neighbor, teacher, mentor, whomever, pastor, it's all the same. You do not know people.
Absolutely. That totally underscores the point you've made for a long time. You don't assume that you know somebody so well that they either would or would not do a particular thing. Yeah.
And that's where I think another thing comes in too, such as, would a thief become a murderer? Would a liar become a thief? Would a liar become a murderer? Would a violent person who abuses someone become a killer? Would a rapist become a killer? See, there's stair steps to each sin.
Correct.
Because they will say, well, a liar won't make a thief. A liar won't make a killer, perhaps. But in the end, when we have seen narcissism, which is prevalent in most murders, especially serial killing, serial rapists, child molesters, sexual assault crimes, the person has been deemed a narcissist, a psychopath, and or a sociopath. And in those titles comes a liar. In those titles have became a thief. In those became a killer.
You're saying that there's a progression.
Not all,
yeah,
but in majority of sadists, they have all the attributes of a liar, a thief, and then a killer.
Well, I was thinking about from what we heard about Nicole, that she was seemingly kind of did play it fast and loose, and I could understand if he saw something, that a fit of rage that we were talking about here in the last couple of weeks, that in the moment, a crime of passion. And because
he's had many times to do that, though, because he had been creeping around God knows how many times. They've been divorced for 2 years. So you have to look at the time frame. That's a long time to be building up rage from somebody who you are no longer married to. Let me make that clear in the chat.
Right.
O.J. Simpson was divorced from her at the time of death.
Right. But that's not to say that he was still not bothered by her behavior.
Well, of course.
Yeah.
But see, the thing about that, the flip side of that is also, how can you be so disturbed by her messing around when once again, she was a free woman. Right. 2, you're trespassing and stalking her and on her property. 3, she's single.
Right.
4, you cheated all through the marriage, allegedly.
Yes.
So why would you be caring about who she's sleeping with to where it would lead you to kill her?
Well, there's always the chance that there was something that occurred that we're not aware of that sparked him. I think about what was his state of mind on the day he was being driven away.
Well, allegedly she didn't want to have anything to do with him that night when they all went to the play. He asked to sit with them, allegedly. This is all allegations.
Right.
He asked to sit with them at the play. She did not want him sitting near her and her family, and perhaps that put him in a bad situation. Now, when you watch this movie, he allegedly went back to the restaurant, which makes no sense. He went back to the restaurant to try to confront Ron. Why, I don't know. Maybe he was stalking her, like I said, and knew that they talked. He frequented her house. I'm not sure. Yeah. But I don't know if that's true or not, who's bringing forth that allegation. But in the movie I watched, OJ showed up at the restaurant trying to find Ron. And God lets him know, hey, your girlfriend's husband, ex-husband's here. You better get out of here. And it shows him running out through the kitchen. I do not know if that is true or not.
Right. It's sometimes difficult to tell. I always found Ron Goldman to be an interesting part of that story. He was supposedly, they had eaten there. She had left her glasses and he was returning her glasses.
The mother's now.
Right. But yeah, a pair of glasses. Well, did he have to do it just then? Did he have to do it that night? What placed him there besides the glasses?
I think they already had dealings with each other. I think that's proven now.
Yeah.
If I'm to believe the commentary of this movie, partially anyway. He had to already have had contact with her before that night, Ronald Goldman. So he felt like, oh, she left the glasses. Somebody said, here, your friend left her glasses, her mother's glasses, whomever glasses they are. And he decided to take them. Because most people at the time, I'm sure, said to themselves, why would a waiter be returning glasses to a patron? Most people don't know where somebody lives. And I never dwelled on it at the time. But now in hindsight, I can say, well, they already had a friendship for him to know where she lived.
Correct. Right. So that's the thoughts that they had already had somewhat to do with one another. Who knows? But what glasses left behind is not a signal. Hey, I'm going home. I'll be there. I'll be waiting for you. Return gives you a reason to leave and return.
Well, but they do have phones. They didn't have cell phones then. You could always call a person.
Yeah.
A beeper. You could call someone to say, hey. And when you saw him at the restaurant, you could say, hey, I'm on my way home. Give me about 30 minutes. Or he could say, hey, I get off at 9:30. Can I stop by?
Yeah. Yep. So I just found him curious to be, and unfortunately to be a part of that scene. I mean, it's unfortunate for,
Someone in the chat
Nicole
says
as
he was
well.
gay. I don't have any notions that he was gay, and I've never heard that he was gay.
Well, yeah, I didn't hear that.
Now somebody's saying he
That's
borrowed her
interesting.
car. Oh Lord.
Well. So if we assume all that's correct, they knew they were quite familiar with one another.
That's obvious.
Yeah. So
you just don't drop somebody's glasses off.
Yeah,
They will come back and say, "Hey, I left my glasses here."
Right, because what if they return in 10 minutes after you've left to return their glasses? It doesn't make, just was odd, just odd. Felt so sorry for the Goldman family. I mean, just the whole group. Just it was so tragic.
So, what do you think about Mr. Rodgers as being a potential suspect?
I'm disappointed that we did not hear more about this other, the other goings on, and that he was nearby. I'm disappointed we didn't hear, but you know what? It might have caused. I think I agree with you that the LA Police Department may have already had that thought. We've got enough information. We don't need to confuse some jury with this other guy. We know he did this. I mean, that could have been their fixation, their mistake in not mentioning it. But apparently they felt.
Well, I was thinking back to the beginning, such as the police before it even got to a trial.
That's what I mean. In the beginning, if they knew that, had that information and didn't share it with the public, if, for example, had I heard, okay, that Nicole has been murdered and Ron Goldman, they've been murdered, then there's a serial killer living so close by, I immediately would have assumed, oh my God, him, it's him, got to be him. And it certainly would have caused, eventually when the trial occurred, it would have created reasonable doubt for sure. I think a lot more people would have been like, he didn't do this. This other guy did this. So maybe I'm just trying to imagine why they would not release that information.
Okay. In the movie, there are lots of allegations of her having an affair with Faye Resnick, her friend. They say that Faye put this in her book that she wrote shortly after Nicole was murdered, that she and Nicole had sexual relations with one another. And we also had heard rumors that she also had, many male friends, lovers, or a few, excuse me. I don't need to be careful about wording. So could it possibly be that somebody else could have murdered her, another jealous lover, and or drugs was mentioned? I do not know if she partook in drugs or not. Could it be that she owed some money, or somebody thought she had some money, or?
Yeah. All of those things to me are plausible. That's where you would begin to think and look if you're investigating. I could see where each person would be, or each scenario that you just described would be worth looking into. I'll tell you something. I think what really sealed the deal for me about OJ, and you may want to come to that later, but the shoe print, his shoe print, that unique tennis shoe that he wore, that was there leading away. The loafer, right? That unique
Bruno
print on the bottom of that shoe.
Yeah.
Then when I heard that, I thought, oh goodness, I think that might have tipped the scales for me.
Well, I think the blood of all three mixed in is something you can't refute. It will be hard to refute that.
It would be, yeah.
Although they did find him not guilty, though. But it's hard to explain any type of mixture of people mixed in together that don't have any business together. Now, whether he still was seeing his wife, this and that, she's seeing Ron, it doesn't matter. You still can't explain.
Yes.
A mixture of your DNA in the actual blood at the crime scene. That would be very hard to do when, one, it's a crime scene and you didn't have any business being there, and there's only 2 dead bodies lying on the ground.
Right.
So still, their DNA would even to me seem a little odd, only because they're lying in 2 different positions when they were found dead.
Yeah. if you had walked
and they
around
hadn't
both,
touched each other or
Yeah.
been entwined, let's say, they're just standing out there talking, then they didn't even get to touch one another.
right?
They're just talking.
Yeah,
Say allegedly, they were just talking.
yeah,
So you can't explain that because when you look at the photographs of the decedents, they both were in opposite directions of each other, lying on the ground.
right.
They weren't even near each other.
Well, I would have liked to have seen, or at least try to recall the blood spatter analysis of just because when people are being repeatedly stabbed, blood is going everywhere, even though these people
Yeah, but it's
fall.
outside though, so it wouldn't be as prevalent as if they were inside.
Right. And if whoever is the killer is walking around getting both amounts of blood on their shoes,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? Just walking through, just in the scuffle itself, you're stepping in something.
Yeah. And that's something interesting too, because like I said, that was a factor to be considered. The blood, his DNA there at the scene,
Right.
the blood droplets, of course, outside the car, inside the car, 1 or 2 droplets, however it went. Then I think there might have been a smudge in the back, if I'm not mistaken. Then inside socks or something inside the house.
On his socks.
Then of course the glove outside. That's pretty telling, but then one could argue, well, somebody planted it. The point
It's always been said, or by those who support OJ, that Mark Furman planted that glove there. Now, I'm not saying he did or didn't, because I wasn't with him, and I really don't know. I don't think anybody will ever know. But that is one of the things that people in defense of OJ say that glove was planted.
Yeah, but see, that's the thing. Even with that, it's still what brings to my mind strange is how did a person, one, leave the scene bloody,
yes,
and not leave footprints tracking out. You have to be able to leave. There's concrete leaving her place.
Yes.
So that means you had to, one, park your car somewhere where nobody could see it. Then you had to get into that car without getting blood on the seats, door handles, steering wheel, all that. So what did he change in? Where did he change? Because that's the part of the story that there's no information. How did the culprit, OJ, whomever, change their clothes without getting blood all over their car seat?
Exactly.
Because he had to be bloody.
Because that small amount of blood that was shown on the outside of the vehicle, I thought to myself, no, it should have been on the door handle. It should be blood inside. You don't go slashing people without getting blood on yourself. That happens as a natural course of the crime.
Yeah, you killed 2 people. So anybody could see the scene.
Yeah.
The blood is running down the sidewalk, literally.
Yes, right.
I mean, it would be hard even for the technicians to not have contaminated the scene, because there's just no way you can say, well, some cases they'll say, oh, it was contaminated. In that case, you really didn't have a choice, because you're talking about there's blood all over the place. Right. So you have to be able to walk up to assess the situation, check a pulse, make sure somebody's breathing, not breathing.
Exactly.
That would just be a horrible scene to not contaminate walking in, whether you have booties or not. But I'm wondering where was the car, truck, whatever, parked? How did you change out of your clothes? Because you could be easily seen standing out in an alleyway, whatever, changing your clothes. So that means you had to brought clothes. So you still got to open the door to bring out the change of clothes. Or did you have change of clothes sitting somewhere on the side of the building in a bag? And then you rushed and changed your clothes. See, all that, I don't think they ever brought forth any information to how did the suspect get away without leaving a trail to their car, plus pulling off their clothes and changing them.
Right.
So that's the odd thing, because you can't even make that, because there's no way you can, all this evidence inside the car, outside the door handle, a dot here, a dot there, not even a whole lot. You have to admit that would be strange.
I thought it was.
Only be leaving a dot here and a dot there. Now that I sit here and think about it, it don't make no sense.
Right. It sounds like as much blood as there was at the scene.
You'd be just as doused with blood as they were draining out blood. Because they had more, because it's inside of them and they're draining out blood.
Yes.
But you're stabbing these people.
Mm-hmm. Yep. You cannot do that without getting blood on yourself. That has shown up in so many trials where that was occurring, and the final thing they said, there was blood all over your clothing. How do you explain that? Well, I wasn't there. Well, there's blood all over your clothes. You had to be. So that always comes into that factors in so many trials like that. I'm trying to think
And
of the
let's
guy's
go
name.
here. He didn't have time to change. Let's say he is the culprit. He
Yeah.
didn't have time to go wash the car off, which we already know he didn't. He didn't have time to clean the car out because he was supposed to be boarding an airline flight that he was running late for. We learned about that later. So make it make sense. You're willing to go park your car knowing that there's a possibility that you could have left blood inside
Yes.
of the vehicle, outside of the vehicle.
Right. If you're putting the scene together, the blood, okay, let's say you've done this and you're wearing your gloves and you get in the car and put your hands on the steering wheel. Are you going to take the gloves off first? I would, like my gloves are bloody. I'm going to dispose of them as fast as I can. If I'm going to get in the vehicle and drive it.
Where would you throw the gloves out without incriminating yourself? You can't just throw them in the street.
Right. That makes finding.
So he pulled one glove off, left it, or it slid off in the slings, and then he did what with the other glove? He walked from the scene with one glove on and didn't think to pull it off.
Yeah.
So how would it fall out his pocket? So it fell out his pocket when he was jumping over the wall, which is near Cato's cottage.
Right behind. It was on the back side of Cato's cottage. Yeah.
All that still sounds strange to me too. It's haphazard. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I agree with you. Listen, I think this case is what changed how crime scenes are investigated. And the mistakes made on both sides of that are pretty baffling because there's so much about it that's just difficult to explain away.
Yeah.
Like, okay, there is a glove. It is bloody. And like, as I was listening to you live yesterday, the point being made, and I would have thought about it too. If you know about leather gloves, if they get wet and they dry, they shrink.
That's anything. Yeah. So that's why it wouldn't have fit. Yeah.
Yeah. And Christopher Darden, I know he probably goes to bed every night thinking, why did I tell him to put those gloves on?
I'm sure he did. I'm sure he did after the fact. But see, that's the purpose of having experts. You always consult with an expert about everything that you are going to put on for the jury. And then that person could say, no, don't do that. Yes, do that.
So, and probably Marcia Clark was like, why didn't you mention to me that's what you were about to do?
Yeah.
But yeah.
Because they've sat in evidentiary for a year. So they're dry.
Yeah. And they have shrunk. They're not going to fit. And so that right there, that was the turning point of the trial. And as I sat there and I watched that, I thought this trial's over. If the glove doesn't fit, you must acquit. And that was it. It was over right then and there.
That's probably my main concern. If I was to just sit and go back in time, where did he dispose of the clothes? Because there's no way I believe he got inside of that vehicle bloodied with the bloody clothes because he wouldn't have had time to clean the car up because he was rushing.
Right, because he was going to catch a plane. Right.
So that's something that's very off with the story because you get blood on you. You don't know where the blood's going to be on your clothes, your backside, inside the crotch of your pants, inside the leggings of the pants. Blood has been found inside of pants of victims and underwear.
Yes.
And they were stabbed outside by somebody else or shot.
Right.
And they couldn't understand, well, how did the blood get inside of a person's undergarments or pants?
And I saw one recently where the blood got inside the cuff of the guy who was doing the stabbing. And he looked at his shirt. It was clean, didn't have anything on it. He didn't see that one little spatter of blood that got on the inside of his cuff. That's what
happens when you're committing a crime. You will forget something. And there's just going to be things you're not going to see to the naked eye.
Right. True. Yeah. That's why that luminol testing it's a good thing to have.
Now, I wonder about that. Did they luminol the truck inside?
I believe they did, but I'm sitting here trying to recall what were the findings.
So it would have shown no smearing. It would have shown smearing of you sitting down.
Yeah, you're sitting down, moving around. That is odd right there. Very odd, because if you have as much blood as there was at that scene, there is no way a perpetrator walks off clean and makes no mark in the vehicle they get into. That doesn't make any sense to me at all because you are splattered in blood. So I don't know, unless that allows me at least to think, let's just say if this was his plan and he had help, that might explain why he himself might not have had some blood, a lot of blood on him. Might.
So then what was he doing, standing there?
That's all I'm just conjecturing.
So if he didn't really do it, then you got to explain the blood inside of the car, outside of the door handle, I think, in the back,
right,
and then the socks issue inside of the house upstairs where he was changing.
So I'm actually playing devil's advocate right now because I think there was too much compelling evidence. I think OJ's team did an amazing job in discounting everything that the prosecution put forward. They did. I mean, obviously they did. He was acquitted.
Well, that's why he had very prominent attorneys.
Absolutely. The dream team, he paid for it and he got it. And they, it worked.
Well, let's talk about behind the scenes, which I've watched in the documentary that aired on, I think it was ESPN. There was a lot of commotion going on between the jury panel. They were fighting at odds, showing out, screaming, jumping on tables, falling out with each other. They were exhausted. They were tired of being on the case. They were bickering. Could it be perhaps some did think OJ did this? I can't remember all of the details from when I watched it last, but could it be possibly they were sick of talking about the case? They were sick of everything going on with each other, and they just said, "Hell, we're gonna let him go so we can go home," because they were ready to go home. Yeah.
I think I heard something about that as well.
I saw the movie, and obviously some of these people probably came forward to speak about what was going on behind. And what I saw in the movie, if any of that's half-ass true, I can see why they let him go. They did not want to continue to be on the jury.
Right.
They were ready to go home. That's the thing people don't understand about being on a jury. There are people who have good jobs. So you're getting ready to miss work for God knows how long to hold the fate of somebody else in your hands and miss your pay, miss being with your family, friends, whatever, your activities you're involved in. And then you've got turmoil going on, brewing with a bunch of strangers you don't know.
Yeah.
Then you can't talk to anybody, can't speak to anybody, can't tell anybody anything. You can't even talk to the jury people. You're sequestered. Then you're doing all the legal wranglings, trying to understand everything that they're discussing in the case itself. That would be very overwhelming for a human being.
Absolutely.
Not accustomed to that.
Just exhausting because of the hours and hours. First of all, you're just sitting there listening to the trial itself. Then you get in there, start deliberating. That is an exhausting process. And I'm sure people had to deal with their emotions. O.J. Simpson was a national hero, a national treasure. I'm sure they had to wrestle with themselves in terms of, man, I hate this. I hate this.
Well, let's talk about the elephant in the room, which is Mark Fuhrman. I do believe also that was the main factor of people rallying for OJ. Many people felt like, OJ really didn't care about Black people because he never immersed himself in the African-American community. Right. He made commentary when he was younger saying, I'm not a, Black person, Negro, I'm my own person. So really a lot of people felt like he didn't identify with Black people. He probably felt like he didn't. He went to a major university where naturally it's predominantly white. And he probably lost himself in the mix, perhaps, to the eyes of some African Americans, that he really was not a Black person. But we rallied behind him because he was Black.
Right.
And so he had the community behind him.
Correct.
He had the community behind him. But when Mark Fuhrman made those nasty comments at some point, and it was released by a woman who was doing a documentary, she felt like the people needed to know, law enforcement needed to know what type of person that was on the case, that perhaps maybe his judgment could come to call. I believe that tainted a lot of African-American people's view.
It absolutely
the case itself, law enforcement, that, hey, could this possibly be these people are setting him up? He's a Black man, wealthy. He's been dating this white woman, married this white woman. He's got biracial children. Hell no, we don't care for this Black man living it up. And now 911 calls. He's been beating her up. Now she's dead. And another white man is also dead laying out there. Hey, conspiracy theory jumped right into fruition when those tapes were released of Mark Fuhrman calling Black people niggers. Yes,
that's right. That's right. It definitely spun the case in a direction that honestly, I'm not. This is not in defense of Mark Furman.
Hold on, let me say something. If you have an opinion, you feel free to hit the link. You can hit the link if you like to join the panel. This is an open discussion of the crime vault. Feel free to hit the link if you would like to give your opinion. If you feel like there's something valuable you would like to add to the conversation. Thank you.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, now I've lost my train of thought. What was I saying? I was talking about something. I'm sure it was extremely important, whatever it was I was saying.
Mark Furman is what we were talking about.
Mark Furman. I hated that. I don't know how to say this, and because I sure wouldn't want to offend anybody, but that race card thing. If you go back into any number of people's past, you're probably going to find a moment where they made a statement that is not truly reflective of their true feelings, but it's a thing that you shouldn't say. That N word is a word.
Well, he said it a lot of
nobody should
times.
say.
That's why she gave the information up. It was more than one time.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. A period of
He
time.
said every reference he made pertaining to cases he worked, because she's interviewing him about his role as a detective cop.
Mm-hmm.
She said every inference pertaining to black people, other races, was always nigger, nigger, nigger.
Yeah,
you ain't got to call somebody a nigger to say, hey, they have a lot of crime over here on 15th Street. There's a lot of crime over here. You ain't got to call everybody a nigger just because you're describing urban neighborhood.
I couldn't agree with you more. It's shameful.
And obviously she felt like he did not like black people.
Well, and that's
because like she said, he didn't even know how to just say black people.
Let's say he didn't.
Even though you're stereotyping the black people, even if you don't call them niggers, you're still grouping them into a group that, well, they're all thugs, they're all bad people, they're all robbers, thieves, prostitutes, whatever the worst of man, woman that you could come up with.
Yes. Right.
And he still had a nasty attitude after the fact, which I thought, you only got a nasty attitude because your ass was caught calling people out their damn names, and you let, I don't remember if you got fired, whatever. You left the police department because you were shamed. Because now you know everybody in America knows that you're racist. This is how you feel about black people, probably Mexicans, Jews too.
Yes.
So how are you going to work with people and you have this type of attitude? So then you have to go back to what was he like working on the force? You have to go back. You have to dissect all of that.
Right.
Because if everybody's a nigger, then how are you handling them niggers? Yeah, I'm going there now. How are you handling them every day? You walk out, pulling people over, stopping people. So then you have to go back in the book of everybody he ever arrested, he ever involved in, anybody he ever investigated. And do you want somebody like him investigating a case with black people, Mexicans in it? Hell no.
I think it's absolutely not. You're absolutely right. I couldn't agree with you more. But let's just say, for just the sake of thinking about it, okay, he's a racist, but he actually did find the glove where he said he found it. Let's see what the racism thing about him, how that turns the case. Mm-hmm. Oh, he's a racist. He's got to be lying. He planted it. It's what about that one little piece of the puzzle there? Mm-hmm. Did he discover the blood on the socks inside the house too? I'm trying to, or Van Adder? I can't
remember. That's so long ago. I cannot remember.
Yeah, I'm sitting here trying to pull up every detail I can remember about it. But just you know the point I'm making is it's powerful. It's that the race issue is powerful and influencing outcomes.
This is how a lot of black people looked at it. Once we heard you say it, they gotta bleep it out on national news. That's a wrap. I ain't getting ready to sit here and dissect a blood spatter, a glove, a footprint. That's all I needed. That's how many people, probably some white people too, that's all they needed. Once they heard you use that word 30, 40 something times or more in an interview, then what I have to tell myself is, you're the lead detective or one of the lead detectives on this same case of two white people dead, and one was married to a black man who's famous. You're going from house to house, handling evidence, scene, hell no, I'm not going to trust you. Whether
Yes.
you did something or didn't do something. It's just the fact that that information was released. Now, naturally, let's say the woman never released those tapes. People probably would have never known Mark Furman used the N-word as
Right.
if it was, no big deal.
Yes.
Because obviously it was no big deal to him.
It cast great doubt in my mind whenever that was released. But it, in certain cases, it can influence people in a direction that isn't following the path of truth, and to get the kind of justice that people feel that they are due. I'm taking the point that the minute you find out this person is a racist, then they're automatically lying. They're automatically planning evidence. They're automatically doing all those are all assumptions that follow the one true thing.
What are you trying to say? Who done it? People should or shouldn't think that way?
No, I think it's certainly worth considering. It would cast some doubt as to whether or not he found that glove actually where he said he did. It would cast doubt. It cast doubt in my mind. But I'm just saying there are instances where the minute you find out someone has used a racial slur, it doesn't matter what they say after that, no matter how truthful they may be. That's the point I was trying to make. You see what I'm saying? I think it's a horrible, despicable thing to be a racist. There's no place in life for that.
But many people are, and I think finally, I'm glad she brought the information out.
Oh, me too. I don't mean that I think
there's never going to be any proof who planted something, took something. Yes. The only way somebody's going to do that is if somebody else was in cahoots and had knowledge. Right. But I'm glad it came out because this goes back to other cases that he's worked on. Yes. Did he handle them properly? Whether he didn't do something in the OJ case or not.
Correct.
The point is, what have you done in other cases? How did you treat other people? That's how I view it.
And I agree with you on that.
Because you can't be biased. I mean, what I'm saying is he can't be objective, excuse me. He can't be objective if he feels a certain way about a certain person. So if you don't like Jews, you don't like Arabs, you're not going to be able to go into an environment where an Arab or Jew is accused of something or have done something. Correct. You're already walking in biased.
Yes, yes. I had a neighbor shortly after the 2001, the Twin Towers in New York, when the towers fell. And he moved I was living in a duplex. He moved in next door. He was from Iraq, and he and his family. And first thing he said to me was, "We're not like them." And the first thing I said to him was, "And I'm not Jerry Falwell," basically. Mm-hmm. So we became great friends, and I helped him get his citizenship. They came here as refugees. Mm-hmm. But so yeah, it was an odd moment in time because it was just months after the attack in New York that they moved in. Well, naturally, my first knee jerk is like, oh my God, I have terrorists for neighbors. But, and he didn't know, but what I was, terribly prejudiced and against them. But when we met and our eyes met, it was like, oh, it's just you and it's just me. We're just human beings saying hello. And they were wonderful people. Okay. So just saying, you're right. You don't judge a book by its cover.
Let's bring forward the allegations that OJ had a culprit. Many people thought his son. I denounced that theory because that's, to me, I don't mean to be rude, but that's just idiotic. I
don't think he would involve
children. You have no business even saying anything about a person. No. You don't have any proof to anything that his son did that. And I just thought that was just atrocious to even implicate his son as a killer. Then they threw out Al at one time. See, this is why I said this is when you start to get beside yourself. You're going to pick on anybody in his immediate circle that could have helped. He didn't need any help. There's nothing wrong with OJ. I don't care about somebody having a little bit of arthritis in their fingers. Trust me, the man was not in poor shape.
Yeah.
Let's just keep it real. He was not. He wasn't wheelchair bound. Okay. Right. He didn't have MS to where he couldn't write or stand up. So that leaves. Did he do it by himself? Did he have help? Did he hire this Glenn guy? What are the receipts that Glenn actually crossed the paths with Nicole? What are the, you know?
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't want to go into the affair thing yet, so I'll just go with the OJ and a co-conspirator.
Yes.
Did he have a co-conspirator?
Well, I could allow for the possibility, like I was talking a while ago. Can I say possibly? Possibly, yeah. He might have.
You're entitled to give your opinion, dear.
Well, I can't say no, he didn't.
I mean, this is
because
just
I wasn't there.
giving your opinion. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I understand that. I can't say he did have one because I wasn't there, and I can't say he didn't have one because I wasn't there. I could see a scenario where maybe possibly he did. Because I find it hard to believe you can, kill two people. One person can kill two people. If I know that he's got to strike somebody first. And if I realize this is his state of mind, you better know I'm going to be all over that. It would be difficult. So just saying, could have been.
Well, as Mark Furman said in that commentary I played in the vault, to that news lady, he was saying, well, it's easy to try to throw Glenn in because people just don't want to accept the fact that OJ did it, blah, blah, blah. And they want an easy fix to blame it on somebody else. Well, he is a serial killer. Rather OJ, even if OJ didn't do it.
Yeah.
Let's say he did cross the paths with Nicole. It still doesn't take away the fact that this man has brutally murdered other people in the state of California and across the U.S. See, one doesn't matter about the other.
Yeah. And somebody mentioned a bit earlier, and I can't quote them word for word, but I thought it was an interesting point that shouldn't this have been, if they knew about that serial killer, that should have been part of discovery.
Well, I don't think nobody knew he was a serial killer.
Well, knew that he was some kind of shady character.
Or just a suspect at the time.
Yeah.
Nobody knew about him killing people across the country.
Oh, I got you. Well, but that should have been part of discovery. The prosecution should have known about that, right? Mm-hmm. The defense should have known.
Maybe they did. You always got to remember, I don't got to tell you everything I know and what I've heard and what they're whispering.
Yep. I thought it was an interesting point.
I think it was the evidence that let them just focus on OJ like what they did. They focused on him. Because you also got to remember, you don't know who said what, who told what, who saw what. Because I do believe somebody said they'd seen a truck leaving the area. Yeah. A white truck left the area. So, there was a lot of, he said, she said around that time, different people coming forward with information. I don't remember any of those said people testifying. I can't remember because it's been so long ago. But the Glenn Rogers is a very interesting theory because we're talking about now two women who know of each other in the vicinity of each other in the same neighborhood, now dead.
Now dead, right.
In a short time span from one another. I do not have the exact time because the information I brought didn't give a date and time of when the other lady was murdered. But during the movie that I watched on Showtime, Nicole was alive when she got the news that the neighbor was dead. She first had somebody, she went to the woman's house to talk to her, allegedly. Right. And the guy who was there was telling her, no, she's not here. And so she was trying to talk to him about the painter, which would be Glenn. And he's basically telling her, I don't know anything about that, blah, blah, blah. And that's when he tells her that she's missing. So she's like, she's missing. Yes, she's been missing. The next thing you know, later after the fact, don't know the timeline of this either, she finds out the woman was brutally murdered. She was found murdered, I think in a park or something. So what are the odds that two people that know each other, I'm knocking on this woman's door and later I'm found damn dead outside with my friend?
Correct.
Could it be just a coincidence that OJ is sinister, diabolical, went off the rails, killed these two people, and in the midst of this, Glenn also crossed her path and he was a killer. So now we have to ask, was he a killer at the time that he knew Nicole, whether OJ did it or not?
Good thought. Good thought. Interesting.
It's very interesting.
There's a lot of challenging pieces here.
The odds are very rare.
Slim to none.
It's very rare that right now somebody in an apartment building, let's say you've got 8-10 people in an apartment building, 2 show up dead within a 3-4 month interval, brutally murdered.
Right.
Why would I not think that there'd be one person that did that?
Correct.
Because you have to go by statistics. demographics, the area, the
Mm-hmm.
type of area. You got to count the population of the town and or city of the crime.
Mm-hmm.
This is an affluent area, so they don't get a lot of crime in Brentwood, I'm sure, at that time. These are people who are well off.
Yeah.
You don't got, it's not an urban demographic where you're going to have a lot of trafficking, drugs, people hanging out, loitering, robberies. So what are the odds of 2 white women showing up dead brutally?
Yeah.
One in a park or somewhere outside and one at her house.
Yeah. My impression was that these were not terribly far apart. I don't mean like next door, but they were in the same general vicinity, right?
Well, they're
These
neighbors.
these
One
two,
killed
yeah.
at home, and I think one was found on a run.
Okay. Oh, okay. Well, yeah, strange odds, but look, we have seen stranger and stranger things happening. For sure. I mean, I'm just saying it is within the realm of possibility given what we have seen and heard in so many, many cases.
Yeah, but I had never heard of that. Nowhere I've ever told. I ain't never heard of that.
Yeah, how often would
I've never heard of nobody. Right to this day, there's nobody I know that died within months of their neighbor. Brutally. I've
Right.
never heard of that.
Me either.
One may have died of a heart attack, a stroke, a car accident,
Yes.
but not viciously murdered. No, I have
Yeah. Right.
not. Come up, Nay, if you want to. Thank you all for the compliments. If you would like to donate to the channel, it is your choice. $ Big Angie 129 Cash App. Thank you all so much for the kind words and the prayers, and also following Crime Vault and this discussion here on Everyday Shenanigans. Each week I will try to bring you a older case here in the United States of an older crime that took place with or without a suspect apprehended. Thank you for joining me. Now let's go talk about the victim. I do not believe in victim shaming, but these things do come up in a trial. They have to tell you what they think they know about a victim, either good or bad, whether it's the defense or it's the state.
Yeah.
It is believed that she partook in a lot of company with men after her marriage, which was her choice because she's grown.
Yeah.
There were many allegations of her sleeping with his associates, Marcus Allen, which that kind of disturbed me. That news, whether he was a dog or not, O.J. Simpson, to sleep with his friend, I found disturbing because I said to myself, now you could pick a lot of men to be with, black men, white, whatever her preference was, is at that or was at the time. But to sleep with OJ's friend, that was a bit much.
That was a low blow.
And Marcus knew better.
Yeah.
Both of them knew better. And I thought that was crass. To sleep with your friend's ex-wife or separated, however it went, and then you know that's his friend. So it makes you wonder if Marcus was actually a good friend to OJ, and then was she doing this to OJ out of spite?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'll up you one, I'll do you one better.
Oh, the games people play. Yeah.
Indeed. Thank you, T. Oh, welcome, Miss Broomer. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. How's everybody?
Hello, Miss Broomer.
Hello, Mr. Done It.
Do you believe O.J. Simpson killed Nicole Brown Simpson and Ronald Goldman, ma'am?
Well, at first I did.
Did you mean you thought this then or recently or what?
I thought that then.
Okay, tell me why you thought that then.
I don't know. Like you said, the stalking and stuff. I mean, I didn't know about the stalking and stuff. I'm not going to say that.
Well,
but
speak up a little bit, Broomer.
It's just the Can you hear me?
You need to speak up a little bit because I had to turn my volume up and I'm trying to keep it down so I don't have an echo on my end when people watch it.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Go ahead.
Okay. Just the situation made me think that he did it, and the conclusion about if the glove didn't fit and all that.
Elaborate. Now, I want you to elaborate so people can understand why you thought at the time OJ didn't do it.
Because I thought that it was a crime of passion. So
you think he did it, but the reasoning wasn't brutality on purpose. What are you saying?
Right. Yeah, I think it's just the simple, he's upset. He might not even went there to do that.
Okay.
But
things got out of hand.
Yes. And that's
that's what I said to who done it. Could this be one of two things? I've stalked her. She's ignoring me. Now I walk up there together, or I lied in wait. They came out talking. I go off, or he deliberately went there. But see, you can't say he deliberately went there because one, he's got to be able to get in the house to kill her. So I don't think possibly that he was deliberate. I think now in hindsight, the way it's set up, maybe I went there to look and peep or to talk. Hey, I miss you, woo, woo, woo. And now I'm seeing this guy standing here. Because you can't know that Ron was coming. There's no way possible he would know that Ron Goldman or any guy was coming by. You'd have to have been there all night lying in wait to know that somebody's on their way to come see her.
Right. And
so that's a very valid point. How would he have known anybody was coming?
Right.
Because that could have been any man laying out there if she kept company with a man or men.
Right.
Very interesting.
I just don't. Yeah, but now learning that there was another person murdered close to her, it makes me kind of iffy now.
I'll say it again.
The other guy that was killing, that had killed the
Mr. Rogers, Glenn Rogers.
Yeah, Mr. Rogers. Yes. It makes me think
Did
about
you know
it
this
now.
information? Did you know this information before I brought it, ma'am?
No.
Okay.
That's why I was like, what? It makes me think.
That'll put a lot of doubt in anybody's mind right now if America knew that she dealt with a man who had murdered people or became a murderer, however you want to work. Let's say he's already murdering people across the country before 1994. Then one would have to say, what the hell are we talking about here?
Right.
Because then that makes your mind leave the evidence as well. Because you're going to think of the odds and the stats of death and murder in a demographic per footage. It's not likely except for high crime areas.
Right. Yep.
Do you think he had a co-conspirator? Wait, first you say you don't think he did it. So let's say if you thought he did it, do you think he had somebody help him or he hired somebody?
I don't think he had a co-conspirator. I think he went over there and did.
So you're still gonna ride on that he went there and shit jumped off.
Yes. Yep.
Damn.
Yeah.
What you doing here? That's what the conversation.
Nice to see you.
Mercy.
Can you imagine?
That had to been a hell of that's the one night. You know how when we talk about true crime, such as the other stories we talk about, I always tell myself it's not true you want to be a fly on the wall, because in this case it's so brutal. You would feel trapped as a bug on a wall watching what unfolded on that night.
You know, that's what they say about a brutal murder. It's personal. It's personal. It's
But you know what? I'm going to beg to differ. Because there are crimes where the people were brutally stabbed more than one time, and the person did not know the suspect didn't know the victim, and the victim did not know the suspect, such as a case out of Texas. The woman was stabbed 32 times, and these two never met.
Wow.
Well, is the person who perpetrated this crime, were they in their right mind? You know,
I don't know.
So
that's why I can't even say that anymore, because that's something known by profilers to say. Stabbing is personal. Yes, stabbing is personal, but then I know people who have stabbed people, and I know somebody right now who stabbed a person in a clerk coming out of a store because they tried to apprehend him for stealing. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
That's just their weapon of choice, a knife. And Pookie over here uses a gun.
True.
Because there's really no reasoning behind the gun or the knife.
But
we think that when a person gets stabbed, because stabbing is more personal, because you got to go back and forth if you're going to continuously stab the person. But there have been many people who have been stabbed, and I've seen this just from watching a lot of true crime. They did not know their victim, and the victim did not know the suspect. Go ahead.
Well,
I know. I had a cousin my first cousin, and her, she was going with this guy, and they broke up. And she had kids. They were in the house and everything with her. And he came in the house. I don't even know how he got there. Got inside the house, but he was in the house, and he ended up stabbing her 52 times.
So this is a boyfriend, ex-boyfriend.
And
how did he get in the house now?
We're not sure. I don't exactly remember, but he was in there, and one of the boys was turning the hall light off, and it's one of those ones where the light switches at both ends of the hall. And they would turn it on, he would turn it off, or something like that. So
that's creepy.
That's how she knew that he was in there. And
so what was the killer doing? Flipping it off?
Yeah.
Oh my God! Can you imagine?
And it was kids, they were little. So then
I can't stand this.
He went and went after her and everything, and stabbed her. She did, and eventually crawl out the somebody called 911. I guess they heard the screaming and stuff. But she eventually crawled outside and was on the lawn, and one of the police and the EMT was with her, and she told who did it. Now this nut, then she passed away, but they took her to the hospital and pronounced her. But the boyfriend went apparently took all the bloody clothes and put it in a random trash can. Went home because they lived in the same development.
So he took his clothes and put them
in a random trash can.
So how did he get in his house bloody?
He didn't. No, I don't. He went there and put another shirt on, they said, and was standing out in front of the
watching the scene.
Yep.
Something that most killers do. Go back to the scene of the crime. Wow, that's bold, man.
So that's why
you stabbed that lady, and I'm watching you all do all this work. Wow.
I know.
That's scary.
And so that when I heard about OJ, it kind of made me think about that. And I'm like, if he was out there stalking this woman, even if even they might have had a cordial relationship, I don't know. But if he's
who are you speaking of, Ron?
No, her and OJ, their relationship.
I don't think it was cordial. I think that's why he was angry that night. It's been said she did not want him to sit with them at the play.
Yes, that's right.
Then they went to dinner, and I think he was offended by that as well. So he felt some type of way, perhaps maybe the allegations of what took place on that night.
So you figure he felt
plus whatever he was feeling toward her beforehand.
Right. So that right there, you just embarrassed me in front of everybody. I mean, I am really pissed off now.
Yeah. Well, who's to say that it took place in front of anybody? Who's to say he didn't call her and say, "Hey, I'd like to join you all and sit with you all at the theater or whatever"? And she said no. See, we don't know when they had words, or he walked up and wanted to sit, and then she said, "No, don't sit here." So we don't even know.
Well, I think the rejection itself.
Okay, itself. I got you. Okay.
Yeah.
Then too, I'm a narcissist, so anything would offend me.
Yep. That's what he is. That's what he is. And they say this and that is wrong with him. He can't do this. Wasn't he making those Hertz commercials
I
at
don't
that
believe
time?
that. Yeah. I can't remember, honey.
I think he was making those commercials.
Listen, he was still playing golf, so there's nothing wrong with him.
No.
So once again, where I'm trying to understand where you're going with this. You said at that time you did believe he did it?
At that time, I believed he did it. But
now you're saying you don't, but tell me why now you don't.
Because of Mr. Rogers.
So all of a sudden this life.
Yeah, you changed my mind. Made me sitting here like
I'm dead. Okay, bro.
Mr. Rogers, what the hell?
Yes. Won't you be mine? Won't you be my neighbor? Hell no.
I'm not going to admit that's who I thought. I didn't know who y'all were talking about.
Let me tell you something. If I don't tell you nothing else on this channel, please pay the few dollars to watch it. It is worth the $4.99, wherever you find it. Because You are going to flip out when you watch this movie because I read some commentary where people did not like it, gave a very nasty rating. It's because of the content is so jacked up and psychotic. You don't even know what you're watching because this girl is taking you on roller coaster rides through a mall, running around, acting crazy, thinks she's being stalked. The allegation that her and Faye Resnick had an affair and Faye's coming on to her and flipping out. I mean, my mind was blown when I watched this movie.
I think I'm going to
Lord,
watch
I
that.
hope ain't nothing true in this movie because that's what I want to know. Who did they talk to give this rendering? And there's even some paranormal stuff in there. And I ain't going to tell you all about that, let you see it for yourself. But it's just it's a creepy movie.
I'm going to watch it.
First, I thought it was fiction. That's how jacked up the movie was. I thought it was fiction. I said, what the hell? I said, this must be somebody's a dream or something. That's what I was thinking when I watched the whole movie because it was wild. Just like there's a version of OJ. There's a movie that came out many years ago that's it's just diabolical is what I'm talking about, but not as sinister. It's weird because it's got OJ. Basically, everybody know he did it, and he's just walking around. You understand what I'm saying? Everybody knows he did it, but he didn't go to jail, and it's just like that little hush hush thing. He's free, and we know he did this, and that was a creepy movie too. I can't remember the name of it, but you can just Google OJ movies, and it'll come up in a probably a Google search. It's a very weird movie. I didn't like that one. That one creeped me out so bad to where I was doing the same thing. Is this real or did this happen? Or it's very strange. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I think I was done.
Showtime. Showtime is the movie that I'm referring to in the Criminal Vault video I did yesterday. It's called The Murder of Nicole Brown Simpson. It's now airing on Showtime. It's in the Showtime queue. You can watch it right now on Showtime. And you can also get a deal for Showtime through Roku for $3.99 a month for 3 months. After the 3 months expires, your bill will be $10.99 a month. And naturally, it pre-debits your card. Thank you. Anything you want to say? Who done it?
Yeah, I'm just sitting here thinking about the shoes that OJ was wearing.
You are still on the shoe thing?
I am. That's the one piece that hangs me up. His bloody shoe print leading away from the scene. Those are Bruno Molly's. They sell for between $250 and $500 a pair.
Okay.
So it's a very specific exclusive shoe.
I think they said in that movie too, she bought him those shoes.
Well,
I think something's mentioned about the shoe before her death.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's for theatrical reasons or whatever, but allegedly she bought him those shoes. I think that's what was said in the movie.
Yeah, it's just true. Not everybody, can afford a pair of shoes that nice. It points. So they're at the scene,
the killer away from the scene. Whoever the killer was, is that what you're going with this?
I think I might be. Well, that can't be denied. We know. Well, yes, of course. If he was part of that, he obviously likes nice things.
Okay, so that means he didn't plan it then. Think about what you just said.
He didn't plan it?
Listen to what you just said. See, y'all don't even listen to yourselves when y'all.
Yeah, I'm listening to myself. What is wrong with what I said?
I want you to think about what Nate said. That he didn't intentionally go to kill her. Would I wear $300 shoes to murder you?
That points to her point, which I agree with. I do think of it as a crime of passion. Yeah. I can see him maybe still being mad at Nicole for the rebuff.
He was still wearing the same clothes from the play.
Right. Okay, so he's just gonna go over there and just maybe cuss her out or have some words with her. What you doing that to me for? Those are my kids. I have every right to be there. I can see he goes over there maybe to have an argument, but he walks up on Nicole and Ronald Goldman, and suddenly his anger turns to rage.
Why do you have a knife with you? But then it says in this commentary that I brought you, he always kept knife that certain type of knife which they can find. So perhaps he just was known to keep a pocket knife on him,
right? Yeah.
Which, see, people are going to argue that. Well, who walks around with a knife? Well, a lot of men
people
do.
do.
Men
I know
don't.
a lot of men
Yeah.
who carry.
Yeah.
I can,
Yeah.
if I need a pocket knife, I turn to the nearest man and say, may I have your pocket
Yeah.
knife? And
Yeah.
9
Yeah.
times out of 10,
Yeah.
they got one. So yeah.
So let's say he always kept this certain type of knife with him anyway, for whatever reason. And he just so happened on that evening said, I got to go talk to her. I got to understand, what's going on. Why you talking to me like this? Why you doing me like this? When we already know he doesn't have any reason to be approaching her anyway.
Right.
Whether they were having sexual relations or not, it is her choice to still date whom she wants because she is not his wife.
Right.
He's not her husband.
Right.
She has the option to change her mind. If I want to have sex with you today and don't call you tomorrow, that's my damn business.
Totally.
And you offended? Oh, well. Hey, the flip side. I've been offended.
Yeah.
I've been offended about your fist in my face.
Right. She's got the pictures to prove he didn't mind hitting on her.
You cheating on me with every Tom, Dick, and woman over here, over there, whatever. You just say Tom, but you understand what I'm saying. Every Susie May, you'd have slept with everybody in the state of California. So now you feel some type of way that I'm single, you single, you still got feelings allegedly. I don't think he still had feelings for her. Perhaps I think it was just a control issue. He didn't have control of the situation because she finally spoke up for herself. They ended the marriage. He could not accept she left him.
Right.
That is what I think.
I mean, he's an enormous star. Like I said a while ago, a national treasure. Got to have a little ego involved. You doing this to me? Do you know who I am? I am O.J. Simpson. I see the pride in all of that. And so if he's mad at her, going to go cuss her out, and then walks up on that easily flips to rage.
Somebody in the chat said they think he walked up on and got scared and booked.
I saw that Daisy May's comment. That's a valid point. That's valid.
Yeah.
Maybe he did just walk up on
But how would your DNA get in if I just walked up? My shoe prints, but not my DNA. Stay woke.
I don't know which side of this you want to argue on.
I'm not arguing any side.
Good job.
Listen, I bring the information and I weigh everything that's been allegedly said about a case.
Girl, I'm kidding you.
But you understand what I'm saying? That's why I tell people, you always have to think about what you're saying. You have to think about what you're saying versus the actual evidence. If I'm to believe that OJ walked up and was like, oh my God, they're dead. Now explain what hair fibers and DNA is doing mixed up with dead folks, and you just stood there. Just saying.
Yeah, good
it's
point.
Not nothing serious. I mean, it's
point
just
well taken.
Making a point.
Right.
How did your DNA get in? Even the hair fibers are not an exact match because a lot of times they can't even, with an African American hair, sometimes you can't just pinpoint an exact match on the hair, but it was of African descent. Hair fibers.
Well,
so that means it wasn't a John that did the killing.
Alrighty.
Or Marvin.
Yeah, it was a Marvin.
Okay.
Very interesting.
But my thing is getting back to Mr. Rogers.
Oh Lord.
Why?
Go ahead, night.
I don't understand why they haven't brought this up. I mean, or said something.
Well, why don't we call the Los Angeles Police Department and ask them?
Oh my God.
It was a lovely day in his neighborhood, I guess.
Because perhaps, as I said, they may have got wind of him. Somebody may have mentioned how they'll ask people who's creeping around, who was she friends with, who did she have an altercation with. Perhaps in the initial investigation, his name did come up. They did a little research on him, didn't have nothing to really just be pouncing the man about, and kept it moving. Because what did I tell you about a crime? And this has been said many times. We work our way inside and then out. Right. We stay in if we have evidence to stay in. Mm-hmm. If there's nothing worth me staying in, then I go out. True. We work our way out. So they stayed in. Who has the most motive? Most will still say, well, he didn't have a motive. He wasn't married to her. But if a person still has feelings, if you're still wrangling with financial issues, because we have heard of people being divorced and still wrangling over child support and real estate. But my thing is, all that should be signed on a dotted line beforehand. I don't want to still be wrangling with you about nothing, and I got a divorce signature with your name and my name on the decree. I don't want to be arguing with you about nothing. The only thing I can see you arguing with a person about after marriages if their income changed and you're needing to modify child support. Or they're going to modify alimony payments. Then, okay, now we got some issues where now somebody may hold some type of grudge. But you went your way, I'm going my way. It's over, bruh. It's over, and it may be, and that might be the way it should be. But I know of cases where it ain't over yet. They may be divorced. They may have changed their circumstances, but one is still kind of hung up on the other. And I think both of these people kind of had a weird fatal attraction to one another. Well, they probably did. They've been together. They got children together. Yeah. We know that women tend to hold on to relationships because they have children with men, which is a very dangerous thing, is to hold on to somebody because you have kids. It's not a good enough reason for me to be subjected to bullshit because I got kids with you. Yeah. See, everybody's mindset ain't the same. I have never agreed with no woman staying with a man because she's got kids with him. You're not going to disrespect me just because I laid down and make babies with you. Right. What I tell myself is, if you don't have no respect for me, you ain't going to chop it up and say, well, he's a fucked up ass husband, but he's a good daddy. I've heard that 1,000 times. Yeah. Somebody once said, and Dr. Phillips said it, how he's a good daddy and he's cheating on his wife, and he's the father who's the breadwinner. So while he's supposed to be at the child's little league game, he's over here screwing Susie. So yeah, you're rushing, leaving the dinner table, or don't even show up for dinner because you're messing with Susie. You're supposed to be going on a family trip, but you postpone it because you got a meetings, other business. But we found out later, Susie was on the business trip. Stay woke. Right. Susie was your business. Right. Okay. Even if you actually did business, you went and ran to Susie. You took Susie on the trip. That's not family oriented. That's not love. That's not respecting the family unit. Your children is in the same unit with your wife. You married your wife. You laid down with her. You had children. So you are obligated to everybody in that circle, in that house. Right. So don't say, I got problems with my wife, my husband, but I'm a good mother. I'm a good dad. Yeah. But you are neglectful because you're cheating and your mind is somewhere else, which is not the family unit. And we have to learn that we can't just keep saying a person is a good parent, but they're cheating on their spouse and they're also being away from their family. People need to understand it. While you're having sex with somebody else, are you thinking about your damn kids? Oh, I gotta hurry. Gotta get to the Little League game. Oh my God, it's a birthday party. That's what you're thinking about while you're having sex. I got to go. Getting your back rubbed. Well, honey, hurry up and run because I got to get to the Little League game. If you let me shut up, because there might be somebody that's actually thinking that. Ooh, this show feel good, but baby, my baby gave us 7 o'clock. We got to hurry up, and I'm sure that's happening. So no doubt. And I've known cases where two people are married, they get a divorce. He doesn't want her, but he doesn't want her to have anybody else. Yeah, well, that's you know those cases. And so he could possibly have still been in that frame of mind. Yeah, he was just probably not really caring. I don't really want to speak for O.J. Simpson's mindset, but from his behavior, cheating with the other women leads me to believe he was never monogamous or in a monogamous state of mind with her. Yeah. And so even after the divorce, he just wanted to control her. That's what all the beating was about. Correct. Yes. So I still want to control you, even though you're free, allegedly. But see, this is another thing I want to bring in this content pertaining to Nicole. And it's not to do any bashing of her, but we have to stay honest to what was going on in their relationship. If it appeared that they were still screwing around, one is going to say this about her. How in the world could you still say you feared him when, one, you moved near him with your children? Right. Two, you're still sleeping with a violent man. Go. Yeah. Yeah. Go. Answer. Somebody going to respond? Well, no, I agreed with you. I disagree with that. I agree. Yeah. See, that's something that's mentioned in the movie when she makes allegations against Mr. Rogers. He's stalking her. He's bothering her. The police says, well, ma'am, you do this often. Ting. You call 911 a lot. Candace. Hello. Well, do you think, let's see, Nicole. and she was
Yeah.
offended, and which she should be. She would be offended. You're telling me. She says, you know, OJ, you know how he was. Oh, because he's famous, you're going to, throw me under the bus. This man was hurting me and beating me, and you all know that, and you all liked him. This situation, I guess you're trying to say, hey, it's not the same. But they're looking at it like, well, maybe it is the same. How do I know? Because I don't really know if he was beating you or not. That's probably what they were thinking, but they didn't say it. So now here you are in a different situation, divorce. Now you're crying about a white man stalking you, hurting you.
Yeah.
But she had real bruises that I don't think was made up or makeup.
I don't think they were either. Those were real bruises.
And she also had it in her
body.
diary. And it's not to say you can't fudge and make up stuff on a diary and a piece of paper, because there are people who are sick and diabolical like that.
Mm-hmm.
They'll make up entries like somebody's hurting them, harming them, but it never happened. But she does have actual photographs of where she was beat up by O.J. Simpson. But
yeah,
that's my train of thought.
Well, you're talking about the frequent calling of 911 that she.
But that was pertaining to OJ.
Do you think that? Yeah, and so now if she's calling about this white guy stalking her, they're not going to believe that, or be thinking she's crying wolf.
So that's what I'm saying. I don't know if this is actually true, but I feel like if there is documentation of Nicole calling about Mr. Rogers,
right,
that would show she did have some dealings with Mr. Rogers, because she had to give him his name when she called 911.
Correct.
So somebody needs to bring forth a receipt to the phone call, and that will prove that she actually had
some
a
knowledge
relationship.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh Lord. Well, you go through enough men, you're bound to hit on something that's just, messed up in 10 ways to Sunday.
Say what? What did you say?
I said if you go through enough men, you're bound to finally hit on one that's just, sound like she hit on two that just weren't good for her.
I mean, but how many more? Because then there's the issue of her using narcotics. So that's when that drug thing came into play. That maybe this was drug related. But like I always tell people, weigh the evidence versus the allegations.
Correct.
Right.
Because in the end, that's where your truth lies. It's not in the allegations, but what's in the evidence. And the evidence pointed to Mr. Simpson, but 12 members said nay. So let's talk about that.
Okay.
2022. Where do the jury stand today? And do they have any regrets in saying nay an O.J. Simpson trial?
That's an interesting question.
I know, that's why I asked it.
I'm sure they do.
I'm sure there's a lot of cases. I'm sure there are a lot of cases in America. Let's Casey Anthony for one. You feel real bad about your verdict. You ought to lose a lot of sleep at night, because I'm going to be truthful with you. In that case, which is not anything similar to this, you ought to have a lot of restless nights.
Yeah.
And you really can't even give your opinion in a crime, because once a person finds out you were on that jury, they're going to say, what the hell were you thinking? You just let a murderer walk the street that killed a child.
Yeah.
So let's say this. Are there some people on the jury that now wish they had said guilty? You go first. Who done it?
Well, I think there possibly could be, because I remember Judge Ito, there were certain things that he would allow in and certain things he would not. And he did always seem to favor the defense. Now, that's something that a judge just typically does, then whatever on the point I'm making. But once they got out and began to hear the behind the scenes goings on, they may have thought, well, I wish I had known that. I wish I had known about that. Possibly today, with other information out there, they would be. I mean, they might be inclined to change their mind.
Okay.
So I can't think that they. I mean, listen, between your live yesterday and today, I've had pause to stop and rethink that. And I thought he was guilty. So I'm sure if they thought he was innocent, it's possible that they might have flipped.
So, okay, let me ask you this, Susan. Say this again. Did you believe he did it then?
Yes, I did.
Okay. What is your opinion now?
I'd like to know a little more information. I mean, like you were just saying a minute ago, let's bring a receipt. If you got a receipt that this actually did happen or did not happen, that would I would be open.
I don't understand. You want a receipt to what exactly?
Whether or not he was beating on Nicole or she was making stuff
God, you didn't
up.
speak to that. I just told you they have pictures of where she was beat.
I know that. Some people might have thought that was just all made up.
No,
she whipped herself.
When you go, listen, when you go and say somebody beat you up and you're filing a report, you know damn well they're gonna send you to the doctor.
Yes.
To the hospital. She had medical attention.
Okay, maybe a bad example I just gave you. Some pertinent information, like knowing there is a serial killer nearby.
Mm-hmm.
If I had known that then,
okay,
I might have thought differently of voting to convict OJ. If I'd known that, I might have been hesitant. That might have given me reasonable doubt.
Okay, so maybe I'm trying to understand. Do you think he did it? I didn't keep asking that. Do you think he did or he didn't?
Somebody's still gonna have to explain those shoes away to me.
Well, that's what I'm trying to say. Is that your reason for saying? Just say yes.
I am. Yeah, that is it. That's concerning to me because how many people in the world have a $500 pair of shoes on their feet? At a murder scene.
Another rich person that live in Brentwood.
Well, possibly right? So.
Yeah.
But at the time of the trial, there'd only been 300 pairs sold.
Okay. So what I'm saying is, do you think that he did it? Yes, right? Yes. Are you saying yes or no?
I'm saying yes. I still do think he did it.
Okay. That's what I'm trying to get understanding. Okay. So Broomer, he did it. He didn't do it. You said you're off the fence because of me bringing this information about Mr. Rodgers, although there's evidence that shows that his DNA was at the scene, their blood mixed in the car, also the socks or whatever at the house. So you still
I think he did
off the fence?
Well,
on the fence? I don't know. I'm confused now.
Jump in the fence.
Let's take the fence down. Okay. I'm leaning more that he did it but with the evidence and everything that they found. But Mr. Rodgers still lingering in the back of my mind.
Uh-huh.
I mean,
okay, I'm just asking.
Mixed with the blood.
Yes, that's why I told you to think about everything that was said. Although he had a not guilty verdict, still focus on the evidence itself and weigh in on did he do this to them?
Because a lot of times it's said if a person stabs another person, a lot of times they end up cutting themselves.
Yes, and that is true because the knife becomes slippery in the blood, and that's how they cut themselves. Which to me, that would be my cue. Okay, I'm done stabbing you because I ain't trying to get cut up too.
Exactly. Yeah. So
at that point, you're deranged. You're still cutting somebody, and you're bleeding. Because you have to feel some pain. Cuts hurts. Especially if you're using a big butcher knife or something. Man,
I can't even imagine.
Yeah.
I can't either. I'm telling you, when I saw the crime photos the other night, I was just floored. Like, man, come on. His shirt was pulled halfway up while he was lying on the ground. And that's something people probably didn't see. But his shirt was pulled up. Ron Goldman's shirt.
Oh, really?
Yes, it was. So that was a bit much looking at that. So, Bruma, tell me about the jury. Do you think some people feel like they made a mistake?
Yes.
Okay. How many do you think feel this way?
I don't even know. I think the majority think they made a mistake or know they made a mistake. Huh?
More than 6?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Because so much has come out, I don't know. I just don't even know how they let them go. I know they go by evidence and everything, but evidence, the mixture of the blood, that right there would have been like guilty. He's guilty. And then finding it on him and his sock and all that. No. The only thing other thing could have happened is if he had somebody else do it, and I can't imagine him having somebody else do it and he's standing there.
I stepped out a minute. Repeat what you said, sweetheart.
I said the other thing would be if he was because of the mixture of the blood and the little blood droplets found on him.
Okay.
Either he did it or he had somebody else to do it, and he was watching, which to me is sick.
Okay.
But so the situation is sick.
So do you think it's a possibility that he hired this man or somebody else to kill them and he watched? But still, if he did this, once again, as I said, shoes can be explained standing in the blood, watching, stepping, looking, but how would your DNA get in there? So
right.
So do you think he hired somebody?
I think he did.
Okay, so but now if you believe that, explain his DNA wrapped up in their blood DNA, and it also made it inside his truck and inside the sock at the house, all that.
I should, yeah. No, I'm going back to he did it. I'm confused. You have to understand my brain's working kind of slow here, but I believe he did it. I'm sorry. I mean, I think everybody got in the hype of things when this was on TV and everything. Everybody was hyped up. Nobody knew the insides, the real insides and outs of this whole situation. Yeah, we knew it was like whodunit said. We knew it was OJ.
Yeah, that's true.
And so everybody's fighting for OJ. That was a fiasco. But so I don't know how they came up with that. I mean, I think too they had to come up with that because if they didn't, it'd have been riots all over the place.
Say it again.
I said I'm thinking in the back of my mind.
Okay. See, the more I make you all chop up stuff. That's what I always say. I always think about what you're saying versus what was proven and not proven.
Yeah.
To get to the truth of a story.
If they had said he was guilty, there would have been riots.
Oh yeah, I know. And then that's a very good question. Let's go there. Imagine, because some of us have changed our mind thinking that, they did do this, but at the time, we didn't, or just didn't want to believe it. Imagine rioting, tearing up a city on somebody who did kill 2 people for no reason.
Right.
I've heard it said that the Rodney King issue where the police beat that guy up so badly that was the returning the not guilty verdict for OJ was justice for that.
Well, I can't say that because I can't speak for the minds of the people that were in the jury. I have to have heard 12 people say, this is my reason for finding OJ not guilty. Because you're still talking about 12 people coming to a decision. So that means I have to be putting that on 12 people that because of Rodney King, that's why I made this decision. And I can't say
I'm
that.
trying to recall where I read about that, saw an interview. It's been in the distant past, and so it's hard for me to...
That's somebody's assumption, and you're speaking for 12 people. You didn't hear 12 people say, well, we really did this for Rodney King, not the victims, or O.J. Simpson. That's a bit much. Robert, what do you think about that?
I don't know.
Huh?
I said I don't know.
You think this is why they did it?
Yeah, I think that had something. Yeah, I think they had something that had something to do with it.
Probably beat up Rodney King. And of course, when they get to that white guy, it was not right. Let me say that. Pulling that white man out of that truck was heinous.
Yes, I agree with you about that.
You're right. Uh-huh.
The white man didn't have anything to do with how blacks were treated in Los Angeles. Just like anywhere in America, you don't do tit for tat. But see, a lot of black people, I would say, think like that. Well, they did this to us. Who cares about that white man?
Right. That's how a lot of people think.
But that's the point. We can't go around murdering people and beating up people because of what somebody white did to me 400 years ago, my ancestors.
Right. And they weren't there. They don't know what happened.
Now, see how amazing you talk about one subject pertaining to one man, two people dead, and then it spins into racism, Rodney King. You see where I'm going?
Mm-hmm.
How things can get spun very quickly into another subject.
Well, I didn't mean to throw the topic off. I really didn't.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm speaking in general.
Mm-hmm.
That's what happens because you're talking about a black man and two white people. So racism was always going to be a topic anyway.
Yeah.
It was always going to be a topic.
Well, I guess it's hard to think about this case without seeing there is a possible racism element to it because of Mark Furman.
Mm.
I mean, through him, racism, became an issue in this trial.
Well, it was.
Yeah.
And you can thank Mark Furman for that.
Right. I'm not justifying anything about him.
When those tapes was released of him calling black people niggers, that's all it took.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. It
didn't even matter about OJ and those people. So this is why I keep trying to tell people. That's why I was making a comment about racism. The subject can start out about one thing, but then it gets spun into a whole nother thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because one of the people in the storyline is black. The other are white. Then you got a dirty white cop. That's all it took.
Yeah, that's soup. Serve it up.
The story is not about the people. And I understand the Goldman's feelings at the time when all this was going on. That he probably felt like it was really all about OJ and Nicole, their life together. What happened? The allegations of abuse. He's black. She's white. It wasn't even about their son. Their son got lost in the shuffle like a lot of victims get lost pertaining to the other people who the storyline was originally about.
Yeah.
Right.
I found him to be the most sympathetic character in the whole drama.
Very interesting.
I mean, basically, he stumbles in. He for whatever reason, he stumbles into something that he wasn't even part of. Basically, not that big a player in.
But when you watch the movie, the waiter alludes to the fact as if Ron knew what was going on between she and OJ.
Well, meaning he wasn't trying to be. He wasn't trying to get.
I understand what you're saying.
Trouble.
I understand
what I'm trying to say.
That the man knew of her troubles with OJ. So let's go there. It really don't matter if OJ meant to kill him or not. You still, let's say, hypothetically knew the man was crazy. Why would you keep fooling with her?
Yeah, you're right.
If you were dating her. Does that make any sense for me to keep dating you and you're telling me your husband is stalking you and peeping through your windows? Just saying.
Yeah, we
don't have any receipts if it's true or not, but let's just say it is.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Imagine somebody telling you that.
I'm sorry.
And you're still going around them and going to their house.
Right. I'm coming. Right. And see, that's the part that gets me. If you know, like you said, if you know that man is crazy and you're going to go over there anyway, you're taking your chances.
Yeah, because the first time, let's just say hypothetically, because I don't want nobody saying I'm saying this is what Ron Goldman knew. Hypothetically, she told him he's stalking me, he's peering through the windows, he won't leave me alone. I ain't never coming to you. And I definitely wouldn't have brought no damn glasses.
Exactly. Tell you where to pick them up. They're lost and found.
Please call Miss Brown and tell her she left sunglasses. Her mom left sunglasses. That'd be the end of the conversation.
Yep.
No, ma'am. I'm not going nowhere. Now somebody's saying Paulette just broke up with OJ. So what does it have to do with you killing your wife? Your ex-wife.
Maybe it goes to his state of mind. He's already pissed off about that. Now he's messed up about this or that and the other thing.
Right, I hear you. But guess what? Let's think logically. Paula is the one that should have been getting stabbed then. Not the ex-wife.
Mm.
You're dating her. You're mad at her. Why are you stabbing this other woman?
Because he never stopped. And his narcissistic.
Hey, Candace, how you doing, honey?
He was still in love with her.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least still trying to control.
Yeah.
He's losing control of his women.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That'll set somebody
Okay,
off.
so I hear all of that. He's losing control of the women, but the one woman that you're dating, you don't kill her. You don't beat her up.
Mm.
You're not at her house stalking her. Stay woke.
Wow.
Amy says maybe he knew he could beat on her.
Yeah.
Well,
maybe Paulette was like, oh, no, not here.
Let's just say on that night she got more than a beating.
Yeah.
Yeah. For real.
Yeah, she got more than a beating.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm gonna get off, y'all, because
thank you.
I gotta do something here.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Good
Okay.
night.
Good to see you, Bremer.
All
Hope
right.
you feel better. Okay.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, honey. Well, any parting thoughts before I get off of here?
None from me.
It's a very interesting storyline.
Yeah, it is. I imagine it's gonna. That's just gonna be one of those things like the Kennedy assassination. You know, the conspiracy theories go crazy over things that we can't figure out and don't have a clear answer to, and no confession to. So, yeah.
Well, let's think about that too before I leave.
Uh,
What if one day he decides to tell the truth?
I think he probably tried to tell the truth in the book that he released. What if I did it?
Because my thing is, let's talk about that then.
Mm-hmm.
Why in the world would any sane person write that?
Somebody that's just thumbing his nose at the system.
Somebody what?
That's just wants to thumb his nose at the system. Mm. You know, we know people like that.
So he's telling the world what? Or told the world what that day? The book was released.
He probably thought he should never come under suspicion of any kind like that, get messed up in a deal like that. He's O.J. Simpson.
Okay.
You know, he's 10 feet tall and bulletproof.
If I did do it, this is how I would have done it.
Yeah, this is what I would have done.
Mm.
Well, it sounds like somebody trying to confess something.
Yes.
Get something off their
Because no
chest.
logical person would ever implicate themselves in a hypothetical of something they just went through.
Right. When I feel like let's say, assuming he did it, he would feel like the luckiest man in the world. He wouldn't want to go near it again, ever. So, it's just an asinine thing to do as far as I could see. It's like, okay, what kind of arrogance do you have to have to write a book like that?
I did hear that when I played the commentary that yesterday with the Crime Vault video, that he did go there a month or so after the murders. I don't know what the context was for him going there, but let's visit that. Why would he go back there a month afterwards?
Well, statistically, they watch crime scenes to see who does return, because it seems in some cases it's just some sort of power that draws them back to the scene of the crime. Mm-hmm. I know they watch videotape of a building is on fire. They watch videotape of who's in the crowd.
Yeah,
they see who keeps turning up. Yeah,
that California fireman, he did that. That was
right. So,
it's interesting how they got the evidence on him. They linked him to all the fires.
Oh my God!
According to him working workshops in the state of California. That's how they called him. That's very interesting.
Just some people just can't resist.
Because that was what they were thinking. Who better to star? You know, when you're going through your suspects, you're thinking, naturally there's a profile.
Right.
I don't know what that profile is, but let's just say a part of the profile will be a fireman.
Yeah.
So then we have to say, well, how could this fireman be in all these different locations? Mm-hmm. It all seems similar.
Right.
That were all set intentional.
Yeah.
So one person may not put it together that they were by the same person because they're in different locales, right? But all it takes is that one little person that says, I think they're done by the same person. The next question is going to be, well, how can they be done by the same person and they're all in different demographics? So then they said, well, let's look at some of the firemen where they were at the time.
Yeah, right. At the time.
And somehow they come across this man who was in a, what I would call a higher up rank to where he was traveling.
Mm-hmm.
So he was at conferences, and that's how they linked it. I don't even know whoever came up with that idea, but it's brilliant.
Yeah, that really was to begin to think in a different way about it. Exactly.
Yeah, it was all because somebody said, perhaps it's a fireman.
Mm-hmm.
Because of how they were set. So then there you go. That opens Pandora's box to start checking the firemen who would have had access to travel because they were in different locations, and that's all it took to lead him as a suspect.
Yeah.
That's a very intricate work.
You're right, and they probably began to see some sort of pattern in the way the fires were started. Although I don't know that, I'm just imagining that possibly that was something that tipped it off too. But who better than somebody amongst them? I've heard, of crimes where people posed as a policeman because people trust the police, but they couldn't figure it out until it took so long to figure out this is somebody who is imitating us. It's how they managed to get access to people's house and prey on them. Yeah. I wish I could remember the name of that case, but it was interesting too. The
a way to gain access to a person, close peripheral to get to a car, in a car. That's what Ted Bundy did once with one of the girls who got away, which led to his conviction out west.
Yes.
Of kidnapping. Is because he pretended to be an officer, but she realized once in the car, okay, you're going in the wrong direction, sir.
Yeah. Thanks for reminding me it was him. That was going to bother me till I could remember who it was.
And then you also have those who will probably come to the door saying, hi, we've got a peeping Tom or this, can I talk to you? And you foolishly let them in, or they could just push their way in.
Yeah.
Which is, risque. You don't know who's in the house, but, the mind of a sick person.
Yeah, if they want in, they will get in somehow or other. Yeah.
All right, Candace, here you go.
What's this?
His son. All the evidence was planted there. Was no evidence stating OJ was the killer. They proved that in court. Candace, I felt the same way to some degree. There was evidence that OJ, he had blood at the car, inside the sock. That was his blood and the victim's blood. That was proven in court.
Yeah. And Barry Scheck, who was one of the was on the defense team, who was dealing with all the blood analysis and everything. When it came time, when he was talking about this was planted and that was a little bit amount and there was cross-contamination. When it came to the civil trial that the Goldmans brought against OJ later, all that was disproven. So,
it's disproven the evidence
that the blood that what he said about the blood evidence was wasn't so. It was proven.
So I don't understand what you're saying. How was it disproven?
Let me pull the article up here. I was just reading it. Let's see here. Oh Lord, I've been reading 3 or 4 articles while we've been talking. Pertaining to what we're talking about, I've just been checking facts. Let's see. Give me just a minute and I'll find it.
Well, you got to show somebody, you got to prove to somebody how did they get inside the house to plant the socks then. You planted a glove, you planted a glove that was allegedly used. So what are you saying? You brought gloves to the scene and swabbed them in the dead people's blood. You didn't even know who she was at the time when you went to the house. To say that was OJ's ex-wife.
Yeah.
You'd have to prove that they knew that was OJ's wife lying there dead.
Yeah.
To say we're going to put it on this black man, this man. Come on now.
I'm still looking. Oh, wait. Sorry. I was just reading about the civil trial that they brought, that all the points that they were making about blood evidence were disproved in the civil trial. That was as far as I read in that. I knew Barry Scheck was the uh, person in charge on the Dream Team of discussing blood evidence. That was his. But I'm just in my own thinking. Weren't these people, all these detectives were mighty busy trying to frame OJ that night? I mean, you just finding blood evidence here, 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 and here. Are we saying that the cops that he was very friendly with the police force? I can't see. Look, take Furman out of the picture. We have to say they were all racist because it wasn't Furman dealing with the
Candace,
Sox, not Furman dealing.
Most of the blood, Candace, most of the blood belonged to victims, not the perpetrator. It's the victim's blood that it's the surmountable amount.
Yeah.
Then you're only talking about respect. So, like I said, you got to prove these people planted evidence.
Well,
that's where the problem. That's where the problem comes in. Versus little amounts of blood planted in a glove versus his DNA in the mix of the blood. So what you got to say is, did somebody at the evidence lab make a mistake? That has happened. Cross-contamination. The person didn't thoroughly do what they're supposed to be doing.
Right.
Handling evidence from one case to the other. But you still can't. You still have to say you went and got evidence from OJ in the same bag and evidence from the crime scene and somehow cross-contaminated all of them.
Yeah. I think one of Nicole, her sister, I think, was commenting on this, that Nicole seemingly couldn't get any help from the police when she would call and they would come out. They would sort of discount what she was trying to say to them and favor him because this is O.J. Simpson. Imagine you're a policeman and you're a fan, and this is O.J. Simpson you're going to have to try to do something about, and your hesitance to do that, according to what I had heard, that he had a lot of favorability from people on the police force. Now, the same members of this police force, there are several on scene and several things in different places were found. And it'd make it hard for me to believe you're collecting blood evidence from this crime scene, and now you are going to go here, 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 and here and plant that blood evidence. That's on the face of that. You'd have to assume the entire force is racist.
So you're saying you don't see them planting the little specks of blood? Is that what you're saying?
I don't see them just planting it everywhere, on the gate, on the vehicle, in the socks, on the everywhere that they.
But I would. Let's just say if I was a dirty cop and I want to bring this person down for whatever reason, I would do that if that's what I wanted to do.
That makes it's a busy night.
But the thing about that is you'd have to have blood at that time of OJ's, and you wouldn't have the blood when you didn't know he was a suspect.
Correct.
That's what people don't understand when you start talking about planting blood. You'd have to have had access to his blood. You know damn well he didn't have no DNA taken to be going to plant the blood as of yet. The blood had to be sent to a lab and all of that. How would they have access to his blood to plant blood?
Right.
You wouldn't have access to plant his blood because you didn't even know that he was a suspect. When you went to the house, you pulled up her name of the victims.
Right.
At some point, somebody probably said, okay, I believe this is OJ's wife. You still would have to have his blood at that time while they're investigating to plant his blood in with theirs.
Yes.
You wouldn't have had his blood. He was nowhere around for you to have his blood. There's no way you could get his blood. But nobody's thinking about none of that at the time. We weren't using our heads at the time of the trial when the information is coming out. You'd have to have access to him at that time to have his blood or anything of his to put in while you're investigating. So that means you'd have had to what? Leave the scene to say, okay, I think he did this. Yeah, he did it. They had problems, blah, blah, blah. Now that means you're going to be breaking in his house to go get the stuff out.
Right.
Well, we
And
know
what happened to the
broke
bag?
in because his house is gated.
Yeah, right. It's just I can see where people think things were planted because of the Mark Furman part of the
That's
piece
what it
of the
was. That's
puzzle.
why I said.
I can see that.
And nobody really sat and thought about what it takes to plant evidence. Because if I'm going to plant evidence, I've got to have something of OJ's to put in with the evidence I'm gathering.
Yeah.
You're not anywhere near him to get the evidence.
Right.
I already said he was rushing that night to get out of there. So what are you saying? You got to count the time they found her dead, what time they went to his house. Well, you already know. I don't think they were. I don't even remember what time they went to his house because remember, he was rushing to get gone. So at some point from the time they found her versus him getting gone, you've got to show a receipt at the time that they went to his house. And was he there? Well, we never heard that he spoke to police on that night. He was found in Chicago that she was dead.
Right. Right. Yes. I can respect either side. If you want to believe he's innocent, I can respect that. I can't prove he's not. If you want to believe he's guilty, you know, it.
Yeah, but OJ did not give a vow. You are not listening. OJ did not give a vow until after the fact. How is he going to give a vow and he wasn't in California?
They had to have his blood at the scene, and
that's
it was at the scene.
You all are talking about something that happened after the fact. They've already gathered evidence.
Yeah.
While this man is on a airline flight.
Yes. So
you can't say his blood was planted when they've already cleaned the scene. They've done the scene. That scene probably lasted for hours. He wasn't even in the state of California.
Right. They had to bring him back from, was it what?
You would have had to break into his house to get what? Hair fibers, whatever. That's still not DNA. Hair and DNA is not the same thing. The only way you're going to get his DNA, which would be blood, saliva, semen, is if O.J. Simpson was there.
Right. If they'd had a chance to take him downtown that night, take blood, take DNA, do all that. They didn't. Blood, he was gone.
Right. To take some blood, put it in a vial, whatever. Then whoever sent it over to the lab, he cross-contaminated with trying to process all of the vials. But see, that's the whole thing. I wasn't thinking about none of this. I'm sure at that time, I was a young person at the time. I just was going by what they told me. I heard all the same evidence. But when the Mark Furman stuff, I think that probably weighed heavier in my mind versus the gloves and the DNA once, the trial commenced. But now when I could just sit here and break it all up and know OJ was rushing to get to the airport. He wasn't even in the state of California. They didn't have any access to his blood because he wasn't even in California. So you can't take his blood when he wasn't even there.
Exactly.
You would have had to give the vial when he got back.
In other words, they had taken up all the samples at this crime scene.
Yeah, and
before he returned. So how did his blood get in there?
So he flew back the next day. You can't make that make sense because the vial would then. You take the vial, it had to be a chain of custody. You've already gathered most of your evidence. So then that means you got to say they planted blood in with other vials behind closed doors. That's the only way that would work. That's the only way that would work. Somebody went into a room, evidence room. If you're going to say that, someone went in an evidence room and divided up blood between two victims and O.J. Simpson. And then think about this. They put the blood where then? Just saying.
Yeah.
Without nobody noticing you doing this in an evidence room. And that's the only way you would have done it.
On a high-profile case like this.
Or vials got mixed up at the lab.
Oh, Lord.
We know about the footprints, and they were same size shoe and a mark on the shoes are similar to shoes that O.J. Simpson had.
Right, the Bruno Malleys.
Well, I'm going to conclude this. Thank you so much for joining me, sweetheart.
Yes, enjoyed it.
Okay?
You do the very same, Queen. I'll talk to you later. Goodbye, y'all.
Bye-bye, honey. All right, everybody. This is a part 2 stemming from my Crime Vault series where I talk about true crime. O.J. Simpson, Nicole Brown Simpson, and Ronald Goldman was the subject of that Crime Vault video. And this is an extension of a discussion panel pertaining to did O.J. Simpson kill Ron and Nicole? You're entitled to your opinion. Brought forth also Mr. Rodgers, who was implicated as a suspect early on, but the public never heard it. I never heard it until here recently when I was doing my research for the video of the first Crime Vault video. He is a known serial killer here in America. He has crossed the country killing people, and he's also on death row right now for 2 crimes, 2 deaths. And also I brought you commentary that the woman who allegedly recommended Mr. Rodgers to Nicole, she was also found dead before Nicole was murdered. So you have to use the demographics of what are the odds of 2 women who know each other, common denominator, Mr. Rodgers, and they both end up dead. But as I said, you counter that versus the evidence found at the scene, which implicates O.J. Simpson as to being there with his DNA mixed in with the dead people. You have to explain how O.J. Simpson's blood would have gotten mixed in with their DNA. As I just said, he was not around that night for anyone to collect his DNA, such as hair, semen, saliva, or blood, to mix it in with these 2 people. He flew back a day later. And naturally, evidence was already collected from the scene. How much, I do not know, but I would assume they worked all evening into the early morning collecting evidence of that said crime scene. And O.J. Simpson was not in the state of California when they would have been collecting the said evidence of the 2 victims. But I thank you all for joining me, watching the content. If you would like to donate to the channel, Everyday Shenanigans, $ Big Angie 129 Cash App. Thank you all so much. Thank you for the super chats and prayers. Please pray for Flower Girl. She's facing a health crisis, dealing with cancer. Prayers for her. Prayers for Miss Joy, whose father passed away, and the other mods who have had some deaths in the family, and Miss Crystal Moore, dealing with a son in an accident. So prayers for all the mods and the fans who watch the content who've had a lot going on. Thank you all so very much. Oh my God. You all have a wonderful weekend. God bless all of you. Stay warm. This is Everyday Shenanigans. Thank you.